Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Butter Popcorn Reviews. I am Bob, and today we are going to talk about a an awesome underground indie horror film by the name of Chicken's Blood. This movie was written and directed by Kerry Jordan from 13 Knot Productions. He's got a 13 Knot hat here as well. I absolutely love this movie, and so I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, I actually already reviewed this movie once on a different website, Gore, which is basically designed specifically for low-budget or super no-budget underground indie horror films. But I really want to talk about this one on here as well, because I think that anybody who watches this, if you know going in that you're going to be watching that it's an indie movie, that it's an underground movie, that it's a low-budget film, can still get something out of it, and it's awesome. So the synopsis on here reads that a struggling wrestler and his friends take a shortcut to the event through a corrupt town ran by drugs and find themselves in the middle of a blood feud between the gang and a psychotic clown on meth. So that's pretty much exactly what it is. So what we have here. So there's a character's name is Pete, played by Ryan Grooms. He is a struggling wrestler. He's an indie guy. And he is with some buddies, and they're headed off to he's going to be wrestling, and then they kind of take a wrong turn. They get lost, and they end up in this hillbilly kind of hick town, a la a million other movies like that, where basically they're just kind of lost a little bit, but where it's a little bit different, as opposed to just being some sort of a psychotic killer who is after them. The movie's a little bit different than that. Like it said on the description. So what it is that there is a kind of a gang. There's a drug gang based in this town, and what we find is that the leader of the gang killed, or thought he killed, the guy who plays the clown. The clown's name is Happy. He thought he killed him a long time ago. He's come back, and now Happy's on kind of a revenge kick. There's some things, basically. So what ends up happening is that the Pete, and his friends, John, who is played by Chuck Conry, and then they both have like girlfriends with them. They get caught up in this whole kind of turf war, if you will, between the gang and the clown, who is going around killing people. This is one of those movies where, like I said, if you sit down and watch this, and going in that this movie costs, and the budget on IMDb for this listed is $4,000. So if going in and sitting down that this movie only costs $4,000 to make, and you're okay watching a movie like that, I think you'll absolutely get a ton out of it, because it's not only is it like a fun horror film, it's also really funny. Chuck Conry, who also is a filmmaker and runs Grundy Nation Films. He's done movies like Morbid and Door One of the Five Doors to Hell. He has his sense of humor, I think, automatically comes out in the movies that he's in. And he plays one of the leads in this, character named John, and he is just hilarious. He really kind of steals every scene that he's in, especially towards the beginning. They're in the car driving, and he's going off on a rant about how King Kong is a total like metaphor for racism, and the whole spiel that he goes on is just classic. It's hilarious. Ryan Grooms is great as Pete. Ryan Grooms playing an indie wrestler. It's funny to me because if you go and you find this guy Ryan Grooms, he looks exactly like Sean Waltman, the wrestler from X-Pac from the '90s. The wrestler, they could be twins. So that's kind of funny. The other thing about Ethan Bolden plays the sheriff in this movie, and he is just beyond funny. He's been in a couple of these indie films from this same crew of people, and I think he should play a bumbling sheriff in every movie ever from here on out. There's a whole scene where he's on the phone with the gang leader, of course, because he's corrupt and he's in the pocket of the gang, and he he goes off. It's hilarious, and I won't spoil the comedy of the scene, but I will show you the reverse of this is the Chicken's Blood DVD. The reverse has Ethan on there as the sheriff with the movie. The scene is hilarious, and when I got this order in, and I saw the reverse of this, I had no idea what I was in for, and then when I watched the movie, I realized how hilarious this was. I actually leave this out. This is how I have it on my shelf, is with the old this cover. I'm not the Do What the Fuck I Want edition of Buttfucker 4. If you, for no reason at all, if you ever watch this movie, if for no other reason than to see this one scene, it's classic. It's hilarious. So the movie goes on. Like I said, there's like some they end up getting involved between the gang. The gang kidnaps them, which kidnaps Ryan, Grooms, Pete and John. They all get captured. Because they're in the middle of this town, and it's totally deserted. They end up, and they're just looking for a phone because I think the car breaks down or something. No, I guess they're just lost, so they're looking to get out, is what it is. But they end up going into like a little local store, and inside the store is the shopkeeper, who's played by Donald Farmer, who you may recognize. His credits go back 35 years. He was in Dawn of the Dead. It was, I think, one of his first roles, and he's a bit character. He's a B-movie horror actor. He's got tons of stuff that he's been in, and he too was great. So the movie is definitely I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a horror comedy. It's not a spoof or anything, and it's certainly not meant to be hilarious in all aspects. Violence-wise and gore-wise, it is pretty tame to start off, and I really like that about this movie, because if you watch a lot of older B movies from the 70s into the 80s and even into the early 90s, especially movies that were like direct to VHS, direct to DVD, or old TV movies, what they did was they didn't have the budget to do over-the-top on-screen kills. So what they did was they did a lot of creative editing and the kills were off-screen. So this kind of pays homage to that a little bit. And the opening, a lot of the kills are off-screen, and I think if I had to guess, I'd say that from somebody who has made a horror movie like that, I think it's twofold. I think that it is a budget thing, but I think it also really helps to amp up for the end, because this movie goes really far. Towards the end of the movie, it's seriously some graphic stuff, and I had no idea what to expect. And when it gets towards the end, some of the stuff that Happy does, what's done to him, is just crazy. And then what he does, it's a total trip. It just really is. And I think it really helped to amp up. It's nothing that, I don't want to say it's nothing I've never seen before, because I've never seen before what happens, but as far as the violence-wise, it's not the most violent thing I've ever seen, but when you compare it like to the opening and as the movie goes on, and it kind of gets a little bit more violent, and you start thinking about, the opening, and a lot of the kills are off-screen, and it's cool, and you're like, all right, this building up, and then the build-up has a payoff, absolutely, for sure. So, I definitely think, if the budget really is $4,000 for this movie, I would believe it. And I say that in the best way possible. I made a movie that cost literally nothing. It was about zero, not including the equipment that we bought. So, if you can make a movie that's this good for that price, then absolutely more power to you. And I love this whole crew of people. I support them in every way possible. I would love to be able to put Chicken's Blood out through my company as on Blu-ray. Right now, you cannot get the DVD. I don't know the full story with this. They were for sale for a little while, and then they ended up having to get pulled, and I'm not sure why. at this point. I've seen Korey, the director, say that hopefully that they'll be able to come back and they'll be able to sell it again soon, and I really hope that they will, if only because, one, he put a lot of time and effort into this movie, but two, more people need to see this movie because it's just great. It really is. I was really, really looking forward to this movie for a long time before it came out. I want to say, I felt like it was a couple of years. It wasn't maybe that long, but you know, on social media they were amping it up, and it was over a year for sure that I was like, all right, I can't wait for this movie to come out. It's going to be awesome. I'm a big wrestling fan, always have been. So when they kind of saying that it was like a wrestling horror movie, that really intrigued me right away. It's not really a wrestling horror movie. You know, there's subplots of wrestling, but it's a straight kind of slasher, you know, movie, and it was awesome. I'd love to, like I said, I'd love to be able to put this out on Blu-ray. I did have the pleasure of being able to put out Chuck, who, like I said, he played John in this movie. He directed the movie Morbid, which had a nice, was released on Wild Eye DVD, but never had a Blu-ray. I just was able to put that out for him on Blu-ray, which is awesome. And his other movie, Door, One of the Five Doors to Hell, I was able to put that out too. So I love being able to do that for indie filmmakers. And maybe, I don't know what's going on with Chicken's Blood. Maybe down the road, it'll get a real Blu-ray, which would be even be more awesome for them. I really want people to be able to see this movie. That's the reason I'm talking about it again today. If you want to read my written review, I'll put a link to that other site, Indie Gore. But really, this movie is just awesome. And if you can get to see this at some point, you definitely should. I keep showing this like this is the movie. It's not. It's Chicken's Blood, and this is awesome too. This is the DVD. I don't know, is pretty cool. I like the art on this. This is printed right on here. This is a pressed disc too. So you know what? I don't blame Korey for not wanting to work with me. I do BDRs for my company. I do low run BDRs. You know, 50, 75, maybe 100 copies of movies just to kind of get stuff out there. And not everybody wants to do that, and I don't blame them. This is a really nice pressed disc. Also came with some stickers. And it looks like a thing for mass destruction clothing. It must have been something they wore in there. Oh, and that's Heavy Metal for Life. That's actually fun. I wanted to mention too that the movie does have a pretty killer soundtrack. Several songs by the band Burning Yesterday, who I guess are a local band out of. You know what? I talk to the guy all the time, and I'm not sure if he's in. I guess are they in Kentucky, 13 Knot, or down south. They're in the south, so it could be Indiana. Anyway, awesome movie. Please definitely go and follow. I'll put links to 13 Knot Production. I'll put the link to Grundy Nation Production, Chuck's down below, and you should definitely check those out when you have a chance. So thanks very much for watching. Please check us out at buttered-popcorn.com. We do lots of movie reviews, indie stuff, mainstream, 4K, Blu-ray, and DVD reviews and news. And then also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/officialbutteredpopcorn. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you next time.